Hitting the go live button.
All right, I am recording.
We're live. Tell your friends you're listening to the Verhoeven Effect podcast. I'm Conlon.
And I'm Nathan.
Tonight we have a very special episode. One of the specialist episodes. We have the 1987 movie RoboCop. Nathan, do you have a history with RoboCop?
Yes, this was part of the Me and Dad Go to the Movies series. Me and Dad saw this in the theaters in 1987.
Okay. Huh.
So we did this and Die Hard, and there was a bunch of movies we went and saw. But yeah, usually mom and dad would go do a pass on it and be like, "Oh, okay, he'd like that." You gotta remember, I was, for people who don't know the dynamics of our family, I'm a lot older than Conlon, or a decade older than Conlon, so I was basically just kind of on my own, as much older child, so I got to do cool stuff like that.
I mean, I got good grades, so I got to be ignored. So I was like, that was my.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
heard the
no,
argument.
I was a big problem. They had to well, let's take him to theaters and make sure he doesn't kill puppies, and it was like one of those kids.
Well, I just heard the arguments that would happen in the house when somebody would get a bad grade. It's like, okay, rule number one, get good grades. Rule number two, do whatever you want.
Yeah.
um, so, but yeah, it came out July 17th, 1987. So summer movie.
Yeah, definitely a summer movie.
Which I mean, this is kind of a small movie to believe in it that much. So good on. But this is a movie that's very special to this podcast because it's where the name basically comes from.
Yeah.
This is directed by Paul Verhoeven. I had watched on American Greed Factory. I'd watched, or maybe this is after I made you watch it, the Criterion Collection of RoboCop. Which is the rated X version, which it doesn't have a whole lot more. It's just slightly more violent.
Yeah.
Like the guy getting shot up in the boardroom meeting scene, like he gets shot up for basically 15 more seconds. It's like, oh, hey, that's a bit too much. So, back when they'd slap a rated X on things, but it didn't really mean that. But
yeah, this movie had 12 passes at the MPAA before its X rating was removed. They would just chop off and curtail a little more violence, and also I think they added more satire in it. Because it does kind of break. Because this movie is grim without its sense of humor.
Yeah.
It requires that sense of humor.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, because it was me watching this movie, and I always thought of RoboCop as just a silly action movie. I didn't understand the satire until I was older. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, and so that's where I came up with the phrase Verhoeven Effect, where it's something that you think is kind of silly and over the top. It actually has a genuine, interesting message behind it. So,
Oh yeah, this is the ultimate iteration of that. It's only because of the genius of Paul Verhoeven and the writers that because if you look at this on his face, if somebody passed you something now, you had no idea what this was, you'd never heard of it. We're making a movie called RoboCop. That sounds stupid.
Yes.
That just sounds dumb. So it's like, and that's why so many people passed on the script. No, they made Terminator a couple years ago. It was cool. This is a cash in on that.
Yeah.
This is like one of those things where we're changing the name subtly, where we become Pacific Rim becomes Atlantic Rim just to try to get people to watch it or something. So yeah, it's a wonderful example of something moving way beyond what you just think it would be on its face.
Yeah. Yeah, and without the right creatives, producers probably wouldn't understand that, and it wouldn't get made correctly. But here, because they're making it for basically as little as possible, they basically got away with it. I saw some behind the scenes stuff talking about that Orion, who put this out at the time, was a part of, or at least maybe took their structure from United Artists, which was about having artists be producers and kind of following the process all the way through rather than having businessmen being producers and trying to follow the money.
Okay, well, yeah.
Which, of course you'd like to say like that's how it should be, but of course we all know Orion isn't in business anymore, so that didn't work out. So
yeah, it was a noble thought.
But this is quite a big success for him. I don't know. Actually, I never looked up how big of a success for this is, but culturally, it was a big success. Everybody knows it.
$14 million to make, which is crazy low even in 1987.
Yeah.
And it made 53, almost 54 million, which is a lot of money for a hard R-rated movie.
Yes.
That's a lot of money in the 80s for that.
And the statistics they're probably giving there probably aren't worldwide, so that's probably more.
No, this is for some reason there's not. I don't have the big breakdown of everything on it.
Sometimes those movies like pre 1990s just don't have. There's no data for worldwide box office, or it's estimated, because they just didn't really track that stuff very well back then. But went on to spawn like, I guess technically 4 movies, several miniseries, a TV show, a cartoon, video games, comic books, everything. So,
yeah.
All to varying degrees of quality, but this one always stands out. So, its simplicity stands out. So, okay, of course, it's directed by Paul Verhoeven. This is his first like movie made in America. I mean, he made Flesh and Blood, which was like, an English language movie, but not necessarily like an American movie.
Yeah, this was considered his second English language movie.
Yeah. And the cinematographer is Joost Volcano, who he worked with a lot. He also like famously worked with Jan de Bont a lot. But Joost here, he worked with him on RoboCop and Starship Troopers and Total Recall, so like some of his biggest movies. He also worked on Das Boot with
Wolfgang Peterson.
Yeah. So he did. He's a very accomplished European cinematographer. So. Written by Edward Neumeier and Michael Miner, who like, I don't know. I feel like they're. If you look up their credits, it doesn't really. I feel like their credits don't do them justice for like, because I mean they didn't like steal this from somebody. Like they came up with this and worked on it together, and then this movie came out of it. But it didn't seem like they necessarily followed up this genius with anything else really. So
yeah, I guess it was a parallel script of, because one of the guys really liked the Terminator.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, what if somebody was like the Terminator, but they were human and they didn't want that to happen? Or they volunteered to have it happen and it didn't work out, but they were supposed to be doing something good, like being a policeman. And then the other guy, they both had like separate ideas, but kind of like built around Terminator. Like, but what if it went different? Like, what if it wasn't just all a machine or just a machine hidden by flesh, but it was actually a person?
Yeah, well, I mean, one way the one guy put it was something like most sci-fi movies are about how technology is bad, and then here that's not necessarily the message. The message here is like technology has taken over this guy, and now he has to deal with it. It's not necessarily like it's really the people that are bad, and technology gets applied to him, and now he has to live in the world where he's a part of technology. But and then he has to like find himself and all that stuff too. But what does that mean? Which is what's great about RoboCop is once you get deeper behind it, there's just kind of more stuff you can connect together. Where it seems like, man, like this is so awesome for like what is just a very simple dumb movie of like, because on the surface it's a dumb revenge movie.
Yeah, most elaborate revenge movie ever. I'm going to become a cyborg and I'm going to get you guys. Or he doesn't plan to do that. It just turns out that way. Interestingly, not sued by Harlan Ellison for the script.
Oh, okay, good.
That's a good, being as they said, we liked Terminator. I'm surprised Harlan Ellison didn't show up with his lawyer. You are going to pay me.
Well, I think it's Edward Newmyer. I hope I got this right, but I think he had like a weird job where he was a reader. So, of course, all these producers that are making all these deals in Hollywood to make movies, they don't read the scripts. They hire somebody, and they're called a reader.
Yeah, there's like there's a subcategory of people in the one of the Hollywood unions.
Yeah.
There are people that are now it's called like story analytics. I don't know what it was called back then, but yeah, these are those guys. I don't know if now they're probably feeding it into a machine and looking for like words or something. I don't know how they do it now.
Yeah.
But it was probably called something similar, but it was just a bunch of guys reading stuff and making sure like I don't know, looking for continuity in story or something, or looking for ways to improve
just looking for something that would be a good movie.
Yeah.
Which, like, if you like know things about Hollywood, it's like, especially if you watch Hollywood depictions of Hollywood, everyone has a script and nobody wants to read it, and usually it's because most scripts are bad, and two, nobody wants to be litigated against.
Right.
So I never heard anything about this guy being, he was the guy who read things and then came up with RoboCop. I never heard anything about like, oh, he read my script and stole it from me, so that's good. So, because he figured he'd be like, because also like, this guy he was kind of like a quasi producer, so that's like how he's running up the chain. So it didn't seem like he had writing in the back of his mind, but it didn't seem to be it wasn't his job focus. But like, so he kind of came up with a version of RoboCop, then came together with Michael Miner, because he had like his idea of like, I think it was just Super Cop, and it's about a guy getting like, gear that made cops like, more stronger and stuff like that. Not that like he's being replaced with technology, but he just has a suit he puts on and becomes a super cop.
Okay.
Which again sounds dumb, but they make it work. And then like Edward Newmyer is bringing more of like the kind of like the social satire. Well, actually no, Michael is bringing it too, because Michael Miner kind of like identifies with being like somebody who, I think he was like born in the 60s and like was too young to be drafted, but saw like what that did to America, and like didn't have, and had high distrust for any kind of organization.
Oh, okay.
And so that's where that stuff comes from. But yeah, Edward Newmyer, like I think he ended up being like the fourth guy in charge at one of these like studios, and like really hated it. It's like, yeah, this isn't for me. And so so yeah, he did some quasi producing and other writing, but like I said, like nothing else he really did really popped out.
Turned down an offer to be a vice president at Orion. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, most of his credits are just for being associated, getting kind of character by credits for RoboCop. I guess Edward Newmyer did work on Starship Troopers, so he did come back and do that. So
yeah, which
is another movie that like when I watched as a kid, I thought it was a dumb action movie, even though it's so blatantly a farce on fascism.
Yeah.
Like I guess I didn't understand it at the time. So, there's a weird like cast Peter Weller, Nancy Ellen, and Dan O'Hurley.
O'Hurley.
Yeah, which I guess he was more famous is why he gets top billing here, but like I think there's more famous people down the line, but real interesting cast. So. What was I gonna say? But yeah, Paul Verhoeven is the genius director, so we'll get to him eventually. Being the podcast is named after him, so
we're not we might do a pass on him.
Yeah. We're not going to mention all the movies he's made because we'll get to him eventually. So. But what would be his most successful movie? Was it probably Basic Instinct?
A commercially successful, yeah. Probably.
Or it would be Total Recall.
Yeah, I was gonna say that had Schwarzenegger in it, so that was probably.
Yeah, probably Total Recall. But, and then of course,
wasn't Showgirls.
No. That was his Hollywood jail movie.
Oh yeah, yeah. Total Recall made almost $300 million.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what, I don't know. This is important to us because it's sort of the genesis of the name of the podcast. But also there's the Criterion Collection of RoboCop out there. There's this Arrow Films version of it, which I'm not sure if it just reuses some of the features from that Criterion DVD, because that Criterion DVD has been out of print for like 30 years, actually 20 years. But I just happened to find it in a Sam Goodies. Sam Goodies was a place that sold DVDs and music in malls. A mall is a big place for those little stores. And when I found it, it was out of print, and I spent like $35 for it in like, I don't know, like 2003 or something like that, which was a lot of money for a DVD back then. So,
yeah.
I was actually a steal, because then like eventually got like Suncoast Videos over here, which they would get stuff like, you get stuff from overseas, and like that stuff would be like $40.
Right.
It's like that is, and now you can just find all that stuff for free. And those places don't exist anymore. It's like, oh, I wonder why.
Yeah, I wonder what happened.
So yeah, and like, yeah, I passed that DVD around to Nathan and my friends, so they could see the wonderments of RoboCop. So, because I still got it, but yeah, I got this Arrow one too, which, yeah, this is a Blu-ray one, which is, I don't know, kind of interesting, because it does kind of break the dilemma a bit, because you kind of do see a bit too much detail in it, because there's like, they have the suit on him, but he's clearly got like a black shirt on underneath, and you can clearly see the black shirt. Like, he's not a robot, he's a guy wearing a costume. But it's fine, it's RoboCop. It's called RoboCop.
It's like John Carpenter's thing. There's great movies that were never meant to be seen in high definition.
Yeah,
and that's because they weren't shot for high definition. There was no concept of what high definition was back then, or at least not that something that would be, it's one of those things like you don't know where technology is going to go.
Yeah.
So everything was shot for like, well, we can put this on a VHS cassette, and that's as far as technology is going to go, right?
And then, but yeah, there's the RoboDoc, which was famous lately for its little story about RoboCop wants an Oreo, which you just look that up onto YouTube. It's a hilarious story that Peter Weller swears is made up, but is hilarious nonetheless. Where it's like Peter Weller in character as RoboCop saying, RoboCop wants an Oreo. And then this guy deciding, it's like, no, Peter Weller wants an Oreo. RoboCop doesn't want an Oreo. And then like stuffing all the Oreos in his face to deny RoboCop an Oreo. And then all filming had to be put aside until RoboCop gets an Oreo. One of those great stories you want to believe, but it seems crazy, too crazy to be true.
Yeah, there was a lot of stories about like, Paul Verhoeven was very hard to work with on the set. He was very mean towards the actors and all that stuff. And then you ask the actors like years later, and they're like, no, we actually liked working with him. He was fine. He was really intense about doing dailies and stuff like that. But other than that, like if you wanted to approach him about something, he was approachable. So you never know what to believe.
Yeah.
I mean, you are under a lot of pressure shooting a movie in compressed time frames. And I know when they were shooting in Pittsburgh, they were miserable because it was so hot at night. It was like 90 degrees at night.
Huh. That's coming off of being in Dallas. Huh?
Yeah.
It was even hotter in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Well, because Pittsburgh was Detroit at night.
Oh, okay.
And then Dallas was like Detroit / City of the Future during the day.
Yeah.
But I forget why they were shooting in Pittsburgh. Because
I thought the mill was in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and also the streets had that look of like old Detroit.
Okay.
Whereas Dallas was like Delta City / New Detroit. That's what they went for. None of it was shot in Detroit though in the 80s, which is shocking because it would have been actually more dystopian because that was like in the midst of crack, which was terrifying. I heard. I didn't live here
then. There's also a great fan film out there. I mean, great's not like subjective, called Our RoboCop Remake, where basically a bunch of people made a segment of RoboCop and they stitched it all together as one fan-made movie.
Okay.
Which has a very famous, there's the one scene where the one guy gets shot up by Ed 209. It's done with puppets and it's kind of funny. And then there's the great, almost infamous scene of the part where the guy gets shot in the dick, and then they just have people coming out of nowhere to get shot in the dick by RoboCop, and they just show dicks they made up to get exploded, but 100 just shooting people in the dick constantly. It's not on YouTube. I think you have to go to Daily Motion to see that because the French don't care about nudity. So. But yeah, there's lots of famous things that have come in the the wake of RoboCop. RoboCop 2 is a decent action movie that's crazy. RoboCop 3 is a travesty.
RoboCop, the original one, is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah.
RoboCop 2 is good at inducing fear of this guy's really, really evil. Even though Kurtwood Smith was really, really evil in RoboCop 1, the guy who plays Kane and the robot iteration of him are frightening. And it has the best in line of any movie ever, where he's unscrewing his head and he's like, "We're only human," and it just cuts music.
Dun, 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 dun,
yeah, oh, that's cool. And that was directed by Irving Kershner. So that was, but it wasn't as good as this one.
No, but it's. But it does help that it clearly had a bigger budget than this movie.
Oh yeah.
So it kind of looks better in a certain way, but I guess the costume also worked better. Because also this movie has a very famous poster of RoboCop getting out of the car, and it's basically, if you watch this movie, there's never a scene of RoboCop getting out of the car all in one motion because that suit doesn't allow for it without it looking goofy or the pelvis jutting out of the way or something like that.
Well, they didn't even try. Whenever Peter Weller gets into a car as RoboCop or gets out, there's no bottom of the suit on. It's just pants because he can't sit down with the bottom of the suit on. Yeah, that whole suit thing was a nightmare. Because he was supposed to move more fluidly.
Yeah,
I guess, and one of the reasons they picked him is he was a small guy.
Yeah,
he could fit in the suit, and they liked the way his jawline looked. He had that Judge Dredd jaws. Yeah, that's cool. And this guy, he can do emotion and stuff with his voice. We like him as an actor. There was a bunch of other people that were considered, but it turned out this guy, because it was Michael Ironside, who was way too big for the suit that they had envisioned. Because the thing is, when you design the suit, when you hear way too big for the suit, it's it's not just your body width, it's your height. Because that suit adds, by the time you throw the shoulders and everything.
It's all addition.
Yeah, it's so if you got someone who's over 6 feet tall, he's going to be 6'5" by the time this thing, that's not going to work. He's not going to get into cars. Cars like Shaq or something. So... yeah, that's one of the reasons they picked Peter Weller and the way he looked and the way he acted. But he practiced moving. He learned from mimes on how to move in a certain way or whatever, because he thought the suit would be a fluid, rubbery, which parts of it are, but basically it was like an armored suit made out of plastic, and it was rigid and it didn't move right. And so they him and Verhoeven talked and was we're gonna have to slow RoboCop down. He's gonna have very robotic movements. Because you can't run in this suit, you can't do things like that. So that's
his movements are like an 80s slasher film killer, where they're moving slowly, everyone else is stumbling around, and they just kind of teleport to places when they're off screen. But it totally works. Um, yeah, RoboCop 3 is awful. I remember liking it as a kid because it's got cool stuff in it, but then they kill off Lewis. There's a different guy playing RoboCop, so
Yeah, they
it
couldn't get
was
anyone back.
it was also PG-13, which is probably why I saw it a bunch because I could rent it from the library. Um, the RoboCop TV show is very Canadian. And the RoboCop miniseries are like strangely, exceptionally violent. And there's multiple RoboCops, and they try really hard, but it doesn't really say anything new. um, and then there was the when was it made? There's the 2014 RoboCop remake, which is another PG-13 movie. So like, what are you doing? And they're just
I watched it once. I thought Gary Oldman tried to save it but couldn't.
it's a fine action movie, but it's not RoboCop, which it's like they weren't trying to be RoboCop, so it's like, okay, if you're not trying to be RoboCop, then why be RoboCop?
Yeah, what are you doing?
And they tried to make it like, because it's like, okay, drones and AI, like now it's a big thing, and they try to do the best they could with it, but it's like you're slapping RoboCop on this. It's it's not gonna end well. And the only thing they do, like, I guess better than in this movie is like showing just how little humanity he had left.
Yeah, they are able to show that like he's basically a brain and some intestines.
Yeah.
That was it. Kind of a nervous system.
Which that's very effective in that movie. Where it's here, it's like I said, like you always know there's a guy. That's not a guy. It's not a guy. It's not a robot with some human skin grafted on him. That's a dude in a suit. A very well made, cool looking suit, but it's a suit nonetheless. So
I guess the suit had some interesting weathering and patina because it was supposed to be much bluer.
Huh.
And it was, but when they on the camera, it did weird stuff reflecting back on the camera, and they didn't like it, so they just kind of stripped the blue off and they made it more silver. But if you build a lot of models, you can see that blue kind of around the edges and stuff, and like it was like where it was either imperfectly stripped or imperfectly painted over. I don't know which, but that kind of works later on because it gives it a weathered, rugged look. It's like, it's seen some things.
Why was that like has kind of an interesting rainbow sheen to it, where like it's not a full rainbow, it's like silver, blue, and purple kind of comes off the suit in a weird way as he moves. That's really interesting.
That's called cobalt rainbow, what you're talking about. That's actually a theme, yeah. It's violet, titanium, and chrome, and you kind of blend. You ever seen when like they try to make metal look hot? Like your exhaust manifolds or something where so there's variations of that called cobalt rainbow.
Okay.
They do it a lot in Warhammer to make the guns look like they're like that kind of model building, and it's just layers of paint.
Yeah.
And it's applied over and not paint removal, so it looks more active, because when you do paint removal, it looks more weathered.
Yeah.
Instead of just hot. But yeah, I'm sure everyone's interested in that.
Sure, why not? It's our own personal reflection on it. Like, because like you said, there's plenty out there. There's plenty of analysis out there of RoboCop that's going to be better than ours, but this is our personal analysis of RoboCop. So, so we'll start Act 1, which we got. It's Detroit at dusk, but actually, I'm not sure what it is in this first scene here. Is this just a shot of Dallas, or is it Pittsburgh here?
I actually don't know. I actually don't know the city of Detroit well enough to identify anything but the most obvious landmarks.
Yeah, but like nothing in this movie you said was shot in Detroit, so there should be nothing in here that's from Detroit other than the Ford Taurus.
Yes. And also this movie is set in 2044, 2018, 2020, or 2009, depending on when, because there's evidence of all those dates.
We get the RoboCop titles fly at the screen. I don't think we get the RoboCop theme just yet.
No, it's just kind of like the basic Basil Paulardis soundtrack, where it's kind because this was an interesting soundtrack because it's a mixture of like it's orchestral music with like digital artifacts in it, like kind of science fiction-y artifacts.
Yeah.
But it's actually was a full orchestra. So one of the coolest soundtracks for a movie. I mean, it does drive it home. Like, it's and this guy also wrote the one of my favorite Conan the Barbarian.
Oh, okay.
Anvil of Crom and all those. All it's you can tell it's like, yeah, that is the same guy. Okay, cool. I would play it for everyone, but fun.
Then we get into a news report, which I always forget. This is how RoboCop starts.
Welcome to Inside Edition.
I think they say, you give us 3 minutes, we'll give you the world. There's a nuclear...
It's interesting. Now, this is part of the power of prophecy of this movie. Because this was clearly like in 1986, 1987 when it came out. It's like, oh, all the journalism is like yellow journalism. It's all newsertainment. And the most horrible things are presented with smiles and like, ha, what do you think of that, Jim? And now if you pay attention, news is pretty much this.
Yeah.
It's not quite as on the nose, but it's so close. It's like, well, yeah, kind of.
Well, I mean, news nowadays is a lot more like panels and people with opinions, which is not what's going on here, because it's all
this is straight
commercial
up
presentation.
Yeah.
But there's a nuclear scare in South Africa because it's apartheid, and the white people are even more eviler in this universe, and the French are giving them nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
So.
Which, as we find out later on in history, they didn't need the French to give them nuclear weapons. They already had them. They gave them over to us or somebody. But we knew they had them in the 70s because they co-developed them with Israel. Remember that story I told you about the Vela 2 satellites?
No.
Yeah, during the Carter years, we had satellites in orbit we put up secretly that could detect when a hydrogen bomb goes off. It has something called the double flash.
Oh, okay.
It's very unique. Nothing else looks like it. So we built satellites called Vela 2. So if there was an unauthorized test of a nuclear weapon anywhere in the world, immediately we would know where it was and who, well, it happened off the coast of South Africa. And immediately the news, like the report leaked out. It's like, oh, someone's doing illegal nuclear tests. And then we find out it's South Africa and the Israelis. And the Carter administration is like, no, never mind. It's just a satellite malfunction. It was a sun hitting the water and it reflected the light back. No worries. And then later it came out. It's like, no, the Israelis and the South Africans co-developed their own nuclear weapons. The Israelis say they don't deny that they have nuclear weapons. They have a lot of nuclear weapons, or at least.
Well, I always knew like the sort of like the
damage.
The like Israelis probably have nuclear weapons, but I always assumed they were just ours. I didn't know there was this mix with South Africa.
Well, there's a thing with using our nuclear weapons is they're traceable. Like, you would know where they were processed because we have to turn all that. We supposedly turn all that information over to the, I don't know, some the UN sanctioning body of that or whatever, but. No, if the South Africans and the Israelis mix their own material, then it's not traceable to us. So we're clean hands.
So we just provide the weapons platform. They provide the uranium.
Actually, we probably provided the uranium too. And because remember, the Israelis stole it during the Johnson administration. Broke into, I think it was Redstone Arsenal and stole a bunch of uranium, which if any other country in the world had done that, where it's like, we're incinerating your country because it's Israel. It's like, that was bad. Don't do that. I mean, God knows what Johnson said. Probably something I can't repeat. Johnson was known for his love of colorful racial. Anyway,
then we get an
RoboCop.
we get an advertisement for the Family Heart Center, which I don't know if this is like supposed to be like a prelude to RoboCop or just like kind of weird, or is he just like selling hearts? Like, you can get a new heart. I can't even remember like what this is doing here, but
he was selling like the he called it the Jarvik series.
Yeah,
because remember there was a wave of artificial hearts in the 80s, and they like, this will just replace hearts. Like, we can do this. We'll just replace your heart with a mechanical pump. Because they had the Yamaha Sports series and different hearts, but they were it was just establishing that this is a world where implanting machinery in people is like it's commercially viable.
Yeah.
And commercial focus on commercial because everything. This is like a hyper in-phase capitalism society that exists here. It's like everything is done for profit, and the whole world is going to shit. And you can see it, and you can feel it. And so, like, RoboCop doesn't seem like that outrageous an idea in this world. It's like, yeah, we're going to turn fighting machines loose on the street because why not? There's money to be made.
Then we get back to the news, and we get there's a report of 3 dead police officers. Here they basically point out, which I guess I didn't realize this at the. I guess I never watched it. I guess I didn't realize this. I always know there was like I knew like OCP like they're part of the RoboCop program, but I didn't know like OCP was running the cops. Like no, it's another wing of our organization. We're gonna make the cops profitable. And like everyone's like that's fucking nonsense.
Yeah. Who would ever do that? Also, remember OCP is an anagram for cop, which is kind of funny.
And then we get we get a mention of Clarence Boddicker, which is played by Kurtwood Smith. He's probably more famous in the That 70s show, and even now it's the That 90s show on Netflix, where he plays Red. But here, he's like, I don't know anything in between with his career. He's so great in this role, but I don't remember him being like bigger in anything else. Like, it was kind of this and That 70s show for me. I don't know if you have any memories of his other roles.
I'm trying to think. He was in. I can't think of what movies he was in. I know he did a lot of like TV stuff.
Okay.
Like, cause he was in the X-Files in the 90s.
Ah, that makes sense.
Was one kind of person. And who else was he? He was in the A-Team as an actor. The weird thing is he was kind of known for playing nice guys.
Oh,
it was kind of because he was the dad in the 70s show, which was kind of ironic. And another interesting thing is Verhoeven grew up when the Nazis occupied. He was very young when the Nazis were occupying where's he from? Denmark?
Netherlands.
Netherlands?
Yeah, is that the same? That's that same thing? Yes, I think it's the same thing. Yeah, Denmark. Atop of Germany.
Yeah. So atop of Germany. Yeah. So he was there when the Nazis.
Wherever Max Verstappen's from.
Okay. Yeah. So he was there when the Nazis were around, and he said they were nasty guys. But the reason, like, he wanted him to play Boddicker, who was the villain in the movie, was because the Nazis he knew were not like the muscle-bound bad guys. They were guys that wore glasses that had receding hairlines that were absolutely, completely immoral. That's why he wore, because I guess Kurtwood Smith doesn't wear glasses. Huh. But the reason they gave him glasses is because Paul Verhoeven said you look like a Nazi. That terrified me when I was a kid by wearing those glasses. Well, later someone said it's because it made him look like Himmler. But according to a Paul Verhoeven interview I watched years ago, it was like, no, there was a specific guy he was aware of that wore those that looked like an accountant, but he was a psychopath. And it's like, oh, okay. So.
And also, I guess in this time view, I guess I picked up more on like, he plays it with like a weird sexual energy too that makes it way more interesting because like what's that about?
Well, he looks like a psychopath. When you look in his eyes, there's nothing looking. I don't know how. Maybe that's just how he's wired and he looks that way. I don't think he's really a psychopath because people like working with him. But
it's such a standout performance that he never like brought back to anything else. No. It's like this one-time performance that's like great and stands unto itself.
Yeah, there was really nowhere else it was appropriate to act like this. He was a completely evil. You're just the absolutely most evil person you'd want to be.
Well, I mean, it's like he's so self-serving too. Yeah, that's the thing. That's like he'll throw anybody under the bus, almost literally. He'll beg for his own life, and then he'll call other people pussies. So it's like, for begging for his own life.
Yeah, there's no life outside of his own. Yeah. And everything he does is like, well, of course I did it that way, but you're dumb, because you didn't, because I need to mock you to feel better.
But yeah, here he's in the news report is just like mentioned as cop killer, so we don't even get like, we don't even know who he is yet or how he acts. We cut to outside the police department. Titles: Detroit Police Precinct, Metro West. I don't know. If do you know your police precincts, Nathan? Is this a real
No,
one?
I don't.
Okay. I mean, I guess presumably like by this time in the future, Chicago's like way or not Chicago, Detroit's like way bigger than how it was imagined to be at the time or what it was at the time. So this is
It
supposed to
could
be
be.
like basically like a metro city. This is like a New York sized Detroit that this is supposed to be.
It could be. Because based on like the cityscapes and the vistas that, because technically like the Detroit, the greater metropolitan area of Detroit ends at the western city limits of Ann Arbor. Like that's considered like the greater metropolitan Detroit area. But we're like 35 miles away from that. So like even when I drive to work 25 minutes, I'm like right. I'm a mile from the city limits. Or no, I'm right next to the city limits. Because that's how that runs together.
So we cut the inside of the precinct. There are lawyers like trying to get their client off. Sergeant Reed, played by Robert Duquois, or Duquois, not probably Duquois. Who this is his most famous role, but like he's been in every. He is in one episode of almost every TV show from the '60s to the '90s.
Yep.
He was in all 3 of RoboCop movies. I don't know. He does a really good job here when you realize if you go back and like count his minutes in his movie, it's not a lot, but he does a very good job with like what little he has, which a lot of people do in this movie.
He has presence. Yeah, he has good presence.
Because that was like the weird thing about watching the movie this time around is realizing how like actually how little main characters have time in this movie. It's actually a lot of time is spent around with the bad guys and the businessmen. So, um, but yeah, Sergeant Reed like shakes the lawyers for like trying to get one of their clients off, and he throws them out of there. And then we get Murphy, played by Peter Weller, shows up. He's a cop transferring in from Metro South, which I guess is supposed to be like a lighter duty district or something, because he's like, yeah, we work here for a living. So he tells him to get his armor and suit up, which which doesn't sound like oh great, police need armor. That doesn't sound like a good thing. So yeah, there's mentions of we get a bunch of different characters here. They don't really recur that much. There's kind of like just group scenes with cops and these same guys around, but I think there's like McManus here. There's like the one guy who's like always like half naked, who's like I don't know, like Italian or Hispanic or something. He's the guy that's always like threatening to strike. That guy.
Yeah.
So they're talking
like the union rep for that precinct.
So they're talking about OCP's just been transferring new guys here, which they don't know. There's even mentions of like, oh great, like they're gonna. It's definitely true to today, where it's like business people come in, they make something a public traded thing, and then basically everything goes to crap as they try to manage it. And it's like, hey, this used to work when we actually like did things, but now somebody theoretically knows how to manage us, and then on paper it's working, but in reality it is. Which that seems to be everything nowadays. So, also it's like a co-ed locker room or just one giant locker room, but that's also something that's in Starship Troopers.
Yeah, I think this was the first like, co-ed dining or scene.
Or at least there's just like male and female nudity, like with no barriers in between, and nobody's like, hey, you can't be in here. It just happens. Like we got to get to work. Like nobody cares. Which is very it's a very Verhoeven thing, and possibly just a European thing that never has come over here. So I don't know what locker rooms are like in Europe. Things quiet down is like that one guy mentions that they should strike, but then it ends up really being like what everyone gets quiet about is because there's Sergeant Reed comes in and there's like his nerdy assistant has a box, and this is where they realize that one of the cops that was like on life support or whatever has died, Fredericks, and so it's like, yeah, the funeral's tomorrow. Anybody not on duties like has to attend or something like that. So, I think they've already so this is like but 4 cops dead in 24 hours, and it's just like, this is this is what happens here. uh which I don't know like what that statistic means, like if like that would be the end of the world if that's happening, or if that does actually just happen. It's like, 4 cops dead, it's just happened. So because if you watch TV shows, it seems like cops and people are getting murdered all the time. But I don't know if that's just a big city problem or what. So,
there was a cop. Let's see, there was a cop killed in Detroit like at the end of last year, and it was a huge deal.
Yeah.
So it's not. But then again, this was the '80s. Like it was way more violent in the '80s than it is now. Despite what you see on the news, what they tell you, it's like, no, if you look at the statistics, we're a lot more likely to get murdered in the 80s.
Yeah, there's less video cameras to catch on tape then. So, see here. There's a we cut to like the entryway. There's a fight there. Here we introduce Lewis, played by Nancy Allen, intentionally androgynous name. That this character could have either been a man or a woman. So they give her a short haircut. So they have her be, she's sort of the 80s androgynous going on here. She beats the crap out of the guy. She does some like judo kicks or something like that and throws him around. So she looks good here.
Yeah.
This pretty much is her most famous role. I mean, she was in Blowout, which is one of our famous Brian De Palma movies.
Yeah.
She's in a movie I've never seen, but I heard so much about, The Philadelphia Experiment.
Oh, okay.
I've never seen that movie. And like the way people talked about the movie and the actual event, or even if it was an event, or the idea of it, of turning a boat invisible or whatever, how everyone's talked about it, it's all merged into one giant anything movie. So that I've never watched it because it's only going to be a disappointment compared to the lies people have told me about it.
Yeah, I watched it once, I think.
Okay.
And it was kind because I got into the Philadelphia Experiment because of Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell.
Yeah.
And supposedly people on the ship were like, no, I traveled through time and here I am and I'm calling your show. And it's like, cool, this is all nonsense, but I love it.
See, again, that's why I didn't watch the movie, because all the stuff that gets attached to the idea of it rather than just the movie. And so in my mind, every idea of it is about time travel, invisibility. It's all the movie. That's in the movie, but because I saw the trailer, but it's like, no, this isn't the movie I had in my head that people were talking about. So.
Yeah, no, it's kind of like, the Philadelphia Experiment is like Event Horizon. It's like a lot of cool ideas, but just doesn't stick together. Or like the whole concept of the Philadelphia Experiment. It's like, that's cool. That really happened. They say they got proof. Nah, they don't. Damn it. Just like last year when they were trying to convince us, it's like aliens are real. We have UAPs and the government's saying yes. And it's like, cool. I can't wait to hear from the actual scientists. And crickets. Like, oh well. That was fun while it lasted.
I mean, we got some kooky managers that were in charge of some real stuff. They're ready to say anything.
I mean, we got guys that like. It's like, hey, what can you tell us about the aliens? Nothing. My security clearance won't allow me to. Why are you here? I don't. Well, I want to be famous, but I want to go to prison the rest of my life for violating security. Because see, those security oaths go two ways. It's like you could be withholding from us that you know nothing and there are no aliens, but technically you're not violating it. So,
So now we have Lewis and Murphy are now partners. They get in the car. Murphy insists on driving, which is kind of a fun scene because it seemed like this should go the other way. There's really not any kind of like, because 80s was a big thing about like men and women and just the natural like antagonism towards each other. Here it's actually weirdly everyone's equal in this universe. I mean, the Boddicker gang doesn't have a woman, but that's because they would probably do terrible things to her.
Well, I was going to say, if you look at their criminal histories, who's accessing it, it's like, I don't think a woman would want to come close to these guys unless she was a sadist. Or no, what's the ones that like to be hurt? Masochists?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, unless she was a masochist, so yeah.
Um, and this is where we feature the cop Ford Tauruses, which at the time this is like actually was one of the most technologically advanced affordable cars in the world.
Very futuristic looking. Had
Yeah.
sealed. Had what were they called? Halogen. They went away from the sealed beam square headlights.
Yeah.
Which they hadn't had in Europe for like since the 80s, but or early 80s, late 70s, but it was futuristic here.
It was a vehicle at the time that had like a lot of standard features, because if you don't know this, back in this time, if you bought a car, there's a lot of things that you would expect to be on a car that would not be on a car.
Yeah.
Like automatic windows, you know, power steering, air conditioning. Also, like the Taurus would have had like they also did clever design with how they put all the buttons on the dash, where it was like reachable by the driver and stuff like that. So there's actually a lot of the Ford Taurus is kind of looked at as like kind of a weird, affordable consumer car, mid-grade consumer car. Where actually at the time it was made, it did actually have a lot of things going for it, because it was like the top selling the car in America for like I don't know, like 6 years, until it just became the Toyota Corolla for like the next 30 years.
Yeah, well, you got the DN5 Taurus, which is the product code for that year, that saved Ford. This, I mean, they always had the truck, the F-150, but back at this time, trucks were something guys in Texas drove around in, and they had bench seats, and they had big engines and four-wheel drives, but they were miserably uncomfortable, and they got 4 miles to the gallon. So this car was like, oh yeah, American car companies can make cars you want to buy, which is kind of another like sub joke in this movie was like, yeah, it's the Detroit's falling apart. Everything's second class with the American cars and stuff, and yeah, but the DN5 Taurus it saved Ford, and then I don't know, they just it was trucks and SUVs just eclipsed it.
Yeah.
Because Mullally tried to bring it back with the new Taurus that was out for a while. That was all the police cars. They're actually police cars.
Yeah.
And those were nice. I almost got one, but then it was like, like the Cyclone V6 did not necessarily get the best mileage. It was all-wheel drive, and it was cool. I know people that have them that love them still to this day, but it's like they're not necessarily fuel efficient. They're not as big as you think they would be inside because of the way the vehicle's laid out. And they were kind of expensive, so I didn't end up getting the last generation Taurus. I almost wish I did, because they do look cool, and they were actually police cars too for a long time. They don't do them anymore, but yeah, those were that was definitely the car that saved America, because I remember Chevy tried to compete with it with the Corsica and the Beretta. They were so pale. Everyone loved those Tauruses. I mean, we had one, so
yeah, we had a Taurus
couple
wagon.
of them,
yeah. Also, well, this is the one thing where it seems like Blu-ray does a disservice, because when you see all the Tauruses, because they have a lot of them in this movie, they're clearly just, man, you just took a rattle can to that, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, they also had the old round headlights under the wraparound lights, and I'm not sure if that was to make them look more militaristic, or they just had a Taurus body on a stunt car, and they just couldn't make the lights work, so they're just like, just stick lights under it. I don't know what was going on.
Yeah, I don't know these parking garages they're in, but everything bounces off the ground and scrapes, and I don't know if that was intentional or just a fun, like, casting choice for a location. Yeah, we know cars bottom out here.
Well, it became a character thing with Murphy.
Yeah.
Because when the first time he drove the car out, he just banked it off the floor and didn't even care. He's just like, because he didn't know the area. He's driving, but he didn't know. So yeah, he's gonna bounce it off the bottom.
Then we cut to, there's some business guys. We got Bob Morton, played by Miguel Ferrer here, who's been in tons of things. Again, I always bring up he's a funny bit. He's a funny piece of Hot Shots Part 2. He was in the last season of Twin Peaks.
He died, didn't he, during filming?
Yeah.
Which was terrible because he wasn't that old.
No. But
he was in the original The Stand, the TV series.
Oh, okay.
He played a pretty big character in that. His father was the Emperor in David Lynch's Dune.
There's a lot of David Lynch connections in this movie. So
Jose Ferrer was his name.
So yeah, they're debating a new defense program. They mentioned, here we get the mention of Ed 209. Some people call it ED 209, but I always called it Ed 209, and even Dick Jones here will later say Ed 209. So
it's Dick's product, so Dick would know best.
Was it just Enforcement Droid 209?
Yeah, Enforcement Droid Series 209. Yeah,
okay.
Something like that.
Then we got Dick Jones here, played by Ronnie Cox, which I guess is just a funny. It's like they're basically the same name.
Yeah, it's basically both names are a penis term.
Which we last saw him in Gray Lady Down.
He's been in a lot of things.
Yeah.
He was in Total Recall.
Oh yeah, he plays a great evil guy. And then you said like he has this weird like country music career that's like in Europe or whatever, all over.
No, I think it's around here.
Okay.
Maybe it's in Europe. I don't know. But yeah, he's like 85. He's still banging out country music. He was also the only other person to command the Enterprise D.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Captain Jellicoe. The bad captain, who was I don't know how bad. He didn't like Riker.
He had the commands. He had a command style that the crew hated. So he was
in command.
Yeah.
He's like, everyone do what you're supposed to. I'm playing the flute, like they were used to the stuff.
Well, but Picard believes in you. He's also gruff and impersonal, but he believes you're going to do the job because it's what you've joined Starfleet to do. Whereas like this guy is, do the thing I want. I know you're talented enough to do it. And they're like, well, I actually know more about this than you. I don't think that's the right decision. He's like, the fuck did you just say to me?
We're going to a 4-crew rotation. It's not a request, or it's not. I'm not asking. Some people don't like guys like that. Like in movies, they're always bad guys. In reality, those are the most practical people to deal with.
Yeah.
It's like I don't. What are your feelings about this? If you're like in charge, what do you think about this, Nathan? Like, don't ask me. Just tell me what to do. I trust me. I'm not invested enough into this to have feelings. It's like task complete. That's all I want to know. I don't want to like. What are your thoughts? It's like if I had thoughts, I'd have your job. So don't ask.
Yeah, at jobs I'm good at, I guess. I can kind of be cold and impersonal because like what I'm trying to do is be efficient. It's like nobody wants to be here. So I'm trying to get you home on time.
Yeah.
So let's work efficiently and get this done because time passes way faster doing something than avoiding work. Like nothing goes slower and is more tense than like trying to hide from work. And I don't understand people who do that.
This is more work than working. Let's just get this done. Hey, you know what I heard the other day? Call me on the way home and tell me. I'd be happy to hear about it then. I don't want to get out of here.
I guess also Peter Weller played an evil captain. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
Star Trek.
Yeah, actually he was pretty good as the captain of what was that ship called? The Tormentor, or the Black Starship?
Yeah.
The Invictus. I don't know. It had some weird, ominous name.
Oh, let's see here. Evil Starship in Into Darkness. What's that? I thought that
was a black ship. It's like a stealth ship looking thing.
Yeah. I'm just trying to see if what I wrote would USS Vengeance.
Oh, okay. I thought it was called the Tormentor. Okay.
It's still something completely un-Star Trek like.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's something the Klingons would name their ship. And it kind of seen as like unoriginal.
Yeah, I mean, the starship that made sense that was like that was the Defiant.
Yeah.
It's like, sure, Starfleet built a warship. That's unfortunate. But look at the cube of death. We have to have anti-cube of death things. We're going to call it not revenge or slaughter. We're going to be defiant towards that. And we're only going to build 2, and we're going to feel bad about it and then forget about the whole thing until like Picard comes along, and then we're just like, let's build the giant warships again and build massive fleets of them for reasons, but not help the Romulans. Like, okay, cool. But it ended well. Picard season 3 was great. So
I've not watched it yet, but I did. Yeah, I did. I was waiting for the conclusion of the Red Letter Media guys to say it was okay, and they seem to be pretty good with most of it. So I gotta watch.
Oh, I didn't even watch that. I gotta watch that. I gotta catch up on my Red Letter Media.
Yeah, it's like it's weird. Like us doing the show means I can't watch that show because I will just repeat the opinions they have because they're too good at their jobs.
That's why some of these Verhoeven effects are really hard for me, and there's passages of silence because I watch and read nothing but the movie. Because it's like, oh, if you want to hear other guys on a better podcast do that, still listen to them. You don't have to have me repeat it. But I have, with this movie, this influenced my entire life. Not as much maybe as Blade Runner or in any detectable way, but I will say that it did that because it did.
Oh yeah. That's what I was gonna mention. Dan O'Hurley. He's just known as the old man. He's like the head of OCP, but he doesn't seem evil. He just seems like he is distracted. like he's trying to make progress. He wants to build this big cool city, and while looking towards that dream, he doesn't realize how evil his company is.
I see him more as a guy who's like, I've risen to the top by, I've played the young man's games. I've done the subterfuge. I've done all the betrayal. Now I've just got to keep everyone in line under me and just vaguely look towards the future, but just only acknowledge in grunts and moans and eye rolls without really communicating anything, because having an opinion at this point is dangerous.
Well, like, do you think his stab at Delta City is him genuinely trying to help the world, or is that just his next thing?
He's trying to help the world in the way he understands, by gentrifying and destroying the poor people that have to live in Detroit because they don't have to live anywhere else, and building a new wonderful city that they will not be allowed to live in.
Yeah.
They can't afford to live in it. They will have giant walking droids shoot them if they try to live in it. But he's like, well, I technically made Detroit a better place by displacing all the people that lived in Detroit. And, essentially, it's like economic death versus like killing them,
Yeah.
So in his mind, yes, he made the world a better place for people who think like him, that want to make a lot of money and live in, big shiny palaces.
Because I'm just not sure how to think of this character, because it seems like he should be evil.
Let's say neutral evil.
Yeah, neutral evil. Okay.
Instead of like chaotic evil. He's evil, but with like a sense of patience. An evil Buddha. Someone who will wait and watch the folly of others and then strike at the last moment.
But yeah, they're him and Dick Jones are debating about like downplaying the efforts of the police union. So like, of course they're anti-union.
Yeah, of course they are.
The old man talks about a dream of building Delta City over old Detroit, which is just a giant building with like I don't know, like weird winding interstates that go in between the city and everything. So,
it's a nightmare of capitalism, as Verhoeven put it.
Well, do you think any modern city that you've seen or witnessed like looks like this or has accomplished something like this, or are they all in like China and Dubai and stuff like that?
Yeah, we have like building code. Like we've had massive work. Like I don't know. Look at Boston from aerial views after they did the dig.
Yeah.
Like that definitely has given that a very old city a kind of modern look. Okay. But there's still like original homes there and like brick homes and cobbled streets. And Boston's not very big either. So you can like look at it as one thing. But yeah, no, the weird, like that kind of, you'll never see that in the United States. Only only like Gulf oil states and just places where people have either no taste or just can't hire good architects would actually build some monstrosity like that. Las Vegas comes close to that,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it's all kitsch.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be like, oh, this is crazy, and we know it's crazy. I mean, they built the Luxor, they built the pyramid, and it's like, oh, this is cool. Will this last as long as the Great Pyramids? Like, oh no, this is meant to be torn down in 25 years. It's like, this is how we do things here. So yeah, Vegas is the closest American amalgam you'll get to that. But Vegas is not a livable city. It's a bunch of temporary housing in the middle of the desert.
Well, yeah, it's because it's a place that's meant for visitors, entirely built for it. Because I actually hear like there's a lot of wrestlers I hear on podcasts that I don't think they actually live in Las Vegas anymore. So probably there's ultimately a downside. But there's a lot of things that seem cool about Vegas because the amount of people that live there is actually like way lower than you think. I think it's like 1.2 million people or something like that. Now, of course, you got like 4 million visitors a day or something like that. But like, so imagine it's like, okay, the people actually live there. It's like, it's not that big. It's like a medium sized city, but it's got like 8-lane highways. You got concerts coming in all the time. You got movies all over the place. So like technically it seems like a city you can get around where there's always entertainment. And as long as you're not gambling, it seems like you could have a good time there.
Yeah.
Other than it being scorchingly hot all the time, but yeah, whatever. Everything's air conditioned there, so.
Yeah, I don't I've never been there, and I know there's a place you can go and like shoot all the guns from World War II. Like you can just rent time, and some dudes there loaded them and handed them to you. Like, here's a Tommy gun. I was like, oh, this is cool. Where's my $500? You know, and I think you can rent supercars out there too.
Yeah, probably.
Which sounds fun, but also probably has a lot of liability built into it because they know everyone's going to be an idiot.
Yeah.
You know, so I'd like to rent like a Corvette from the 70s with a big block in it, you know, something I'm not going to get in too much trouble and it will be insane to drive.
The Pawn Star guys are there.
Yeah.
So you can go there and pretend it's history and not just sadness. Yeah. Let's see. Oh yeah, so yeah, the old man's giving a presentation about Delta City. He says old Detroit has a cancer and it must be cut out before the 2 million workers to build the future get here.
Cancer is crime. He does specify that because you're like, whoa, where are you going here, Dick? Oh, okay. Because you don't know how evil these guys are. Like, what are they going to say?
He's like saying, I think it's time we gave something back, and basically in reference to community service. So, but you know, it's that's always like lip service with those people.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like that's basically the whole military is built on that. It's like you'll be our heroes. We'll pay you nothing, and we'll make sure that we don't support you after bad things happen to you. But in the meantime, you're the best of us.
As far as the concept goes, you're number one. Now, when it comes to like actually doing something for you or helping you, you know, after we subject you to like the worst trauma a human can be subjected to, good luck. But you know, with our hearts are in the right place.
If we see you at a restaurant, we'll give you a free meal. We'll act like that pays for everything.
Yeah.
Bob Morton here is kissing a lot of ass in this meeting. So he's a go-getter. Very I don't know, it's weird. It's weird. The Bob Morton character is interesting because he also doesn't seem bad, but he's bad, but it's like almost like he's bad, but like incidentally doing less evil things than everybody else in the company.
Yeah, he definitely has his own agenda, that's for sure, but he seems to have, and he has that crappy style that a lot of those guys have. Yeah. But it seems like good things come out of it.
Yeah.
It's almost like people know how to manage him a little bit. Only that's not very clear in the movie, but it seems like the people that develop the technology under him kind of try to like, well, say this to Bob, but don't say that. And, it's like we can get him to do stuff. And he's also written not to be a completely hateful. Like he's not evil. He's just greedy and selfish and ambitious.
Yeah, and he's young and stupid, but yeah. Well, I guess he's not stupid, but
He's naive.
Yeah.
He thinks he's gonna be like he thinks like, oh, Dick Jones just got to where he was by kissing ass and not but now I've got the big product. And it's like, no, the guys that cement themselves in those positions did not just carry winning projects through for the company. They also did bad things. It's provable.
Also, there's a vague thing here, which like this comes up every now and again about like the younger people who have actually better ideas, but like they gotta sit in a waiting line to pay their dues because that's what everybody else did, and like it's always garbage, but it's always adhered to. um. So then we get Dick Jones. He gives a presentation, all the War Machine things that OCP does well. There's a whole wall of videos, which interesting production note. All those videos had to be re-recorded specifically to match with the camera, which is running at 24 frames per second, where usually VHS would run at 30 frames per second. So that's fun stuff.
Oh, okay. They said to slow everything down.
Yeah. Because otherwise you'd see the refresh strobe line on the TV screen. Nowadays they've just blue screen the screens and just fill it in with whatever they wanted. But then he presents Ed 209. It's just a robot with guns. It's a big robot with guns, mostly legs. It's got those reversed hinged legs or whatever you call those, or
Digitrade, yeah.
And then we get a team of technicians that come in and turn it on, which like.
Well, the guy who designed the AT-ATs for Empire Strikes Back.
Okay.
So yeah, you can kind of see that.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting like effects stuff with this movie because they basically did it as cheaply as possible.
Yeah.
With stop motion animation, which wasn't necessarily like the future at the time, but they had a lot of clever ways to make it look as good as possible with the limitations they had. Because and they're like Harry Henryhausen fans, but then like they're doing stuff where you have like Ed 209 is moving in a camera shot that is moving, which like I can't remember if I saw the behind the scenes where they basically have like basically the platform where the guy is animating Ed 209 as they're like moving the camera, and somehow it all works together, but it's really interesting. Like I think they put a mat on the camera and like they do a camera movement, he does the animation, and then they'll repeat the movement and then mat the other side of it and have like the live action footage in it. It's pretty amazing for what they did and how little it cost at the time to do it. So in a very small team, I think they have like 2 effects guys on this team. So
yeah, it's a $25,000 model for that.
Oh yeah, fantastic model.
And it was like 7.5 feet tall.
Oh, was it that tall? I thought it was very small. Okay, never mind.
No, it was like 7. Well,
not when it's animated. When it's animated,
no, not when it's animated. For the
it's a
static
much smaller one. Yeah.
7 feet tall, but
yes.
Well, no, the static one could rotate at the waist, I think.
Yeah, I could turn its head. That's all I could do.
Yeah. But that's actually like you couldn't build something like that even with today's technology that cheaply, physically build it.
Yeah.
Like that was pretty amazing.
Yeah, this is one of those big movies where it's there's a lot of talk on the movie circuit podcast stuff about like sometimes just we don't know how good we had it back then, but this is a movie that's kind of like that because you see like this is a cheaply made movie. It's still all practical effects that were somehow cheaply done that look better than a lot of things nowadays.
Yeah,
because everything's just done with CGI, and there's I don't know why they don't go back to some of this, because it's like. Yeah, be effective with it, but like you can still do this stuff nowadays because how much more expensive would it really be than what CGI costs nowadays?
Yeah.
Because I know there's some stuff with like John Wick, like they have the digital gun flashes and a lot of digital like squibs stuff. They do it better, but with John Wick stuff, the reason you kind of like the technical reason they get away with it is that the guns they're using. They have like a plug in the middle of the barrel, but it's using, blanks, but real bullets. So it's a real gun that's firing real bullets. There's just nothing comes out the end of the barrel. for safety reasons. And so, but the gun functioning is completely accurate. It's a real gun. It just has a plug in it. So it's like, so there's a lot of accuracy paid to that. And then you just have to put it in a digital flash afterwards. So it's like that. Okay, that's okay. But then the squib stuff is like, well, then you can still do real squibs, can't you? Just, but yeah, because like also if you watch behind the scenes stuff on John Woo films and like how crazy and how much all the time people are almost killed all the time. It's like, okay, that's the reason you do CGI everything, because it's just safety reasons. It's quicker, but it always looks worse.
Yeah.
Because there's like the thing with the John Wick thing is that they basically you can point those guns directly at somebody, pull the trigger, the gun functions, and then in the post production, they die.
Yeah.
In a John Woo movie, you have a real gun with a real blank. There's stuff coming out the end of it, so you cannot directly point that gun at somebody. So you kind of have to. You're kind of limited to actually. You have to film it. You have to have them shoot the gun near the person. Somebody has to time the squib, and we got to all do that right, or the setup is going to take another 6 hours. So it's like there's reasons why you do this. Yeah. Actually, there's a bunch of we could even see mistakes in this movie with that kind of detail. Because later on, there's a part where they start throwing a guy through glass, and if you notice, the glass is blowing up before the guy hits.
Yeah, it just happened once.
We even you got a rocket on a string. We get a stovepipe. If you look for it, there's stuff there, but you don't care because the movie's good. Yeah, the Ed 209 walks in. I like that there's the scientists that come in. They have like the little tray and they have the squeaky wheels, and so there's like a little moment of silence as like as they're moving the thing. And there's also this big hum with Ed 209. There's also a hum whenever RoboCop walks in. That's also kind of interesting. I don't know how to describe it. It's just a weird electrical hum.
Yeah, it's just establishing the presence of something. I mean, we assume it's some kind of power unit.
Yeah.
But it just establishes that like something scary is in the room or something powerful.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we have Ed 209 walks in, and like the whole board of directors like gets scared because they don't know if it's gonna stop or not. And then Dick gives Kenny a Desert Eagle, which I'm not sure if this is the first moment of a Desert Eagle in the movie, but there's a lot of guns from this. This movie has a lot of guns, and a lot of guns in this movie wind up to be in other famous movies. But the Desert Eagle is one of them. The Barrett 50 was like, this might be the first instance of Barrett 50 in a movie. There's a lot of guns in this movie. What is that? What is that Beretta? That's a RoboCop gun. I've heard it called a Rafifi or a Beretta R or something like that.
So Beretta R is also known as the Auto 9.
Okay.
It's a Beretta 93R machine pistol, which is heavily modified.
Yeah.
For the film, it has this very long barrel, a huge flash hider. What else was it? Because he was supposed to carry a Desert Eagle originally.
Yeah.
But his the suit would not fit through the finger, the finger guard on the Desert Eagle, and they didn't really want to have to modify the Desert Eagle seriously because it kind of ruined the look of it.
Yeah.
They just made just like a fully automatic gun that this machine could fire one-handed. Because the Beretta, like the actual Beretta 93R, has a little flip down thing in the front. This was just a modified version of that.
Yeah.
Because RoboCop would need that because he just had a big, hydraulic press for an arm.
Yeah, he weighs 600 pounds.
Yeah, he just hold the gun.
Dick gives Kenny the Desert Eagle and has him point at Ed 209. And here we get the please put your weapon down. Your weapon. Oh yeah, please put your weapon down. You have 20 seconds to comply. And then it's all playful now. Dick's like, oh, you better do what he says, Kenny. He's like, okay. He throws the gun down. It's like, you now have 15 seconds to comply. So now everyone's getting scared as they realize the thing doesn't work and it's about to kill Kenny. So, Kenny begs for his life and he's trying to ask people for help, and then everyone's run away, and then they push him out into the open, and then just Kenny gets blown away by a 209.
He's firing two like incredibly powerful machine guns that are so powerful that this giant robot's arms like reciprocate as they're firing. Something like it'd shoot down an aircraft, you know.
Yeah, there's like this gets cut down in the feature version, but in the rated X version, he's basically shot for like 10 more seconds, where he's on the table just still getting shot, and like he gets shot standing up. He gets shot standing up even more. He lands on the table. He gets shot. He gets shot some more. And then eventually like, they pull the cable on the one of their like the pedestal they have, and then like Ed 209 shuts out down with the comically like airplane engine shut down from like Lucasfilm stuff, like the Ed 209 has a lot of comical sound work behind him. It's great.
Yeah, Ed 209 was his head was patterned after a killer whale.
Okay.
That's what the look they were going for.
I remember somebody said something like a Bell Huey helicopter was also another influence on it, but I can't remember what that.
It could be with the kind of guns it had, maybe.
Yeah.
Didn't the Hueys have gun pods?
I think I think eventually it strapped some of those on them.
Because that was just its arms. Like it didn't have it had 2 feet, and its arms were just guns. Like it didn't have hands that manipulated anything.
So yeah, the old man is angry. Bob intervenes. I think actually like this is where Bob Morton seems like the best person of the group, because he's like, somebody call an ambulance. He's the only one that like, everyone's scared for themselves. Bob Morton at least has some presence of mind to be like, hey, call the ambulance. We know this guy's dead, but like, get him over here. But also this is where we get Bob being kind of evil again, because as soon as like, you know, he smells blood in the water, because it's like, oh, his thing's going down. It's like, I better intervene with the old man and be like, hey, we got a RoboCop program. It's ready to go. Ready to step in and take over the Ed-209. And then, so yeah, they walk away from that. Here we got Johnson. He's one of the business, I think, yeah, he's one of the business friends here. Well, none of them are friends. They just kind of associate with each other. Johnson warns, they're on the elevator now, and here he warns of like Dick Jones' wrath, which is very poignant.
Yeah.
Then we cut to Murphy's flipping around his handgun. What's he got here? Has he got like a SIG?
It's a SIG Sauer.
Okay, that's what I thought it was. He's saying he's practiced it because he's like to impress his son, who loves some TV show called TJ Laser, where the guy shoots a guy and spins the gun around, and but I guess
that effect was very hard to achieve with RoboCop's modified Beretta because it was so front heavy.
Yeah,
the swirling effect was very hard to do.
But here, Lewis picks up on like, yeah, I think you like twirling the gun. I don't think it's your kid. And he's kind of like, yeah. They get a call of a robbery. We cut to Boddicker and his gang are driving a box truck around with a bunch of burnt money. So now, like, you know, Boddicker's angry. He's like, "You burned all the money," which, you know, we never see the bank robbery, so we don't know what the hell.
Yeah, I'm guessing they hit a safe with explosives.
Yeah,
and it burned up the money.
So yeah, like this time Lewis is driving. Murphy takes 2 guns to like start to get in a shootout with the gang. The gang like gets ready. They all have shotguns. And they get ready to pop open the back door to shoot him, but when they pop open the back door, the police car isn't there, which seems kind of funny. And then Murphy's on the side trying to, you know, which I don't know. In reality, you wouldn't do this, but it's just cool for a movie. To 2 gun, it's like it's
dual wield guns.
Yeah, it's like,
have you ever tried to shoot a gun off your strong hand? Ridiculous. It like moves in ways you don't expect.
Yeah, double the ammo and double the what's 2 unaimed shots versus 1 aimed shot? It's like an action movie. I don't know. In this whole movie, everyone's firing everything from the hip, so you know it doesn't matter.
Yeah, because he's using a Heckler and Koch, he's using a Sig Sauer, and and then his
Lewis
partner has the what is it, the
is that the VP9 or
yeah,
something?
It's a Heckler and Koch P9S. The VP9's a clone of it.
Okay.
But they're really weird German. Yeah, this was H&K right after Glock almost put them out of business. This is before the H&K we know nowadays.
Yeah.
where they make the really cool, like, yeah, it's a $1,200 handgun, but it's really nice. It's got a weird trigger because I've rented one and shot it. It's like, that's a weird trigger. I don't like that trigger. But I like the Glock trigger. If I had to use it, I mean, the favorite's 1911, but
Here, one of the games named Bobby. He gets shot in the leg, and he's kind of like, I got shot in the leg. And so here's what they pick him up, and Boddicker looks at him and goes, "Can you fly, Bobby?" And they just throw Bobby into the cop car.
And everyone participates in
it. Well, yeah, which is this is immediately shows who Boddicker is and what this gang is, where it's like any weakness, and it's just like you're just cannon fodder.
Eat the weak. It's the weirdest shootout ever because these people are like using shotguns at almost point blank range. No one's been hit.
Nope. Just every bit of the car has been, every mirror has been shot.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, all these cops are wearing body armor. They got helmets and stuff like that. But
that's true. Yeah, they're more like soldiers than cops.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much the entire thing in this movie. So yeah, they're able to follow the van to the old mill, which is a steel mill. Backup. They also mentioned backup is not on the way, and so they decide to go in. Which is actually this is Lewis's call, or Murphy hands it over to her, like, since she's like, yeah, let's go in. Lewis, they split up. Lewis happens on a guy pissing, and then she gets distracted by like, is his penis out? and then she gets knocked out and falls onto some like bags down below, but she's still kind of like knocked out for a little bit, so she's kind of out of the picture for a bit. Then we cut to Murphy happens on two guys. He shoots one and stops the other. This is where he gives another famous line, "Dead or alive, you're coming with me." Murphy arrests the one guy, and then Murphy gets held up by a couple other guys that come in, including we got Leon Nash's character played by Ray Wise, who's like most famous for Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
He has a weird career. He does a lot of B movie things, but he's like totally a fine actor. So I don't know. He just ends up in a lot of weird things. But most notable for Twin Peaks. Or did he happen to be in some other show that he was in for like 63 episodes that I'm not even thinking of?
I only know him as Laura Palmer's dad.
Okay. So they take Murphy hostage. Clarence comes in. He kind of takes over the situation. He's antagonizing Murphy. Clarence talks about he doesn't like cops, and so cops don't like him, and so it's just a perfect circle of violence for him. And then Clarence like taunts him with a shotgun, like he's just gonna blow his head off, but then he just shoots his hand off in a very like I don't know. It's like his hand just like flies off in a V. It's very affecting. It's like, oh, that looks like that hurt, and it looks terrible, and lots of blood is streaming out of there. This is where I call it he gets crucified by shotguns in this sequence, which is not entirely sense, but there's that was another thing in the commentary where it talks about like Verhoeven's insistence that like RoboCop is a Jesus parable, which is very fun to like go back and like rework all that stuff. And then also like this is like another full Verhoeven Effect thing where it's like people come back to the creators late years after is like, did you mean that? And they're just having fun with it and go, sure. Sure, that's what I meant. Because there's a lot of stuff where it's like once you point out the Jesus parable, then you start seeing that. And then what the other guys also point out is like, we're also kind of making Frankenstein. They're like, oh, well, that seems less interesting when it's just Frankenstein. What if it's a Franken Jesus? Like, there you go.
Well, I think Paul Verhoeven has, I know he's got a degree in like mathematics and physics, but I also think he has a degree in like some kind of religious
biblical
training.
Literature or something like. Yeah, he does.
Yeah, it's so it's like, yeah, it sounds weird, but it's also when you have a guy with a background like that, it's like, yeah, he might actually. It's like, yeah, this is techno Jesus. I mean, it's possible.
Well, it's one of another famous story is basically how Paul Verhoeven's wife kind of convinced him to do this movie because he passed on it essentially. Like, he threw the script in the garbage or something like that, and his wife fished it out, and then she pointed out the Jesus connections in it, and then that's what interested him. Is like, Oh, so this isn't stupid. So even Paul Verhoeven had the Verhoeven effect on him.
Yeah. There's deeper meaning.
But I mean, like, that's what you got. When a movie's called RoboCop, what are you going to do other than think that that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard?
Yeah, I mean, it's a ridiculous name. It's only because of him and the production team and the writers that this, like, we think of this as cool.
Yeah.
That this is not just the weirdest B movie rip off of Terminator that ever existed. It's like that. It's only that that's where the quality comes from.
So Murphy stands up. He's still trying to, like, I guess, resist or walk away. They blow off the rest of his right arm. And then they shoot him. They just empty the entire tubes of shotguns into him. And somehow Murphy is still alive.
And I assume that's some incredible body armor.
Oh, yeah, I guess he is wearing body armor. So yeah, you know what? When you look at the Iraq War, they all had body armor, and you see the things that happened to them and that they survived. You can survive a lot with body armor. As long as you're covering your vitals, you can survive a lot. So
yeah, your arms and legs are not essential to life. It's just terrible without them. Yeah. But there are no life organs in your extremities. I know, because I tried to block a 400-pound safe with my hand. It's still attached, but got some weird wounds.
And then Clarence just comes up and finally just shoots him in the temple of the head, and Murphy falls back. I wrote motionless, but actually he's still twitching.
Yeah.
And then I wrote Lewis runs in and sees Murphy dead. Technically isn't. He is dying. Then we cut to a helicopter has dropped off Officer Murphy. He's apparently still alive, or they're trying to resuscitate him. But eventually, he starts having visions of his family, but like they kind of like grow distant to him. Then there's visions of him being shot. You see him. They're like, I think a lot of this is in first person because that will like connect together with the next scene. They're shocking him with paddles, and they hit him with drugs, and then they eventually just declare that Murphy's dead.
And I guess this was actually a trauma team from an emergency room.
That makes sense because the dialogue seems authentic, I guess.
And Verhoeven went to him and said, "Yeah, I'm going to set up some cameras. Of course, this, we're going to, but I want you to, I'm giving you no dialogue, or I want you to do what you would do if someone came in with these kind of wounds." Like, okay. And basically, so one of the cameras was like just the gurney.
Yeah.
And they just showed these people, and it's like, yep, let's get lunch, because to them it's a job. To you, it's like, hey, I just in this car wreck. It's like, yeah, I gotta get out of here at 6. So we're gonna try to get you together and get you down the road. I can, and my wife can tell you, it's like, yeah, it's gonna be a job after a while, which is terrible. But yeah, you can get desensitized to anything. But it's kind of good that you can, because if people didn't, no one would be able to do this kind of work, because they would just be.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to imagine, like, this is the emergency trauma center in the most violent Detroit that's ever existed inside this movie. Like, what do they see on a daily basis? It's not appalling to them anymore.
I remember when somebody told me once, who was a paramedic in Detroit, that Detroit Receiving Hospital, which is a huge hospital in Detroit, half the doctors there are military doctors, because they can learn to treat gunshot wounds there.
Huh.
And I heard that, and I was like, that sounds anecdotal. That can't be true. And I asked 3 other people. One of them was a doctor, and they're like, yeah, that's true. Like, oh, okay, wow. I didn't know that. It's like, yeah, that's where you see the most firearms trauma.
Huh.
One of the places, Chicago's got to have another couple hospitals.
Yeah.
But I know Detroit only has one central hospital, because Detroit's not as big as you think it is. Under 1 million people. So
I don't know. According to TV shows, it seems like Chicago has like 400 hospitals.
Yeah, they make TV shows about, like, they have to make up hospitals in Chicago.
So we have Act 2. We get first.
Let's have a gun control sidebar here, real quick. Chicago, it's virtually illegal to own a firearm.
Yeah.
Detroit is the Wild West. Michigan, you can, as until recently, pretty much buy and own anything you want to. both of them have roughly the same rates of gunfight. The one does not exceed the other. So I don't know what that tells you. Anyway, back to the show.
We got first-person digital images. Scientists are staring into the camera. I wrote down there's this lady's name. There's this cute lady with giant glasses who I think you mentioned in a podcast like a couple episodes ago. And then another podcast around the same time mentioned this lady. This is kind of the biggest thing she ever did, but I guess affecting here. So.
Yeah.
I tried to like look her up, and like she basically does not exist anymore. Like she did like 8 movies, and I guess became a mother. There's no history on her.
Yeah, she basically stopped acting in the 90s from what I'm seeing. So it's like, yeah, she did 8 small parts. This was like her biggest part. She did it good. Well, they just took a hot lady and like, let's put her in big goofy glasses. It's like that later became a porn genre called nerd porn. Like, wait a minute, no, this isn't a nerd. This is someone with bad glasses.
That also became a trope in the 90s and I guess the 80s. Like, yeah, you just put goofy glasses on a hot person, and then like you do a transformation on them, and the only thing you do is take their glasses off.
Yeah. With silly glasses, they suddenly become available, right? Wrong. It doesn't work there either, but yeah.
We get Bob and Johnson look over RoboCop. Bob tells them to like lose the remaining arm, which I guess kind of makes Bob seem kind of heartless here. It's like, he signed the waivers. He's not a person anymore. He died. So
well, understand too, there was a backstory here that they were the reason Murphy got assigned from Metro South to Metro West is they were manipulating police assignments to cause casualties.
Okay.
So that's another it just shows you how just the evil woven into everything.
Now, is that Bob and Dick doing that, or is that Dick doing that so he can get the Ed 209 program?
That's Bob doing that because he needs a person. Ed 209 is purely a machine.
Yeah, but like they also need to sell the robots. So if they are artificially creating violent crime by having like untrained police officers in the wrong spots at the right time to create chaos, then that's.
I understood it to be a Morton thing.
Okay.
It could be, but that's just it could be. I'm not always right about everything. So
okay. I mean, that both would make sense to me. Like, yeah. I mean, it's all OCP. It's all OCP's fault. So. This is also where he looks into the camera. He's like, "You're going to be a bad motherfucker," which I guess kind of makes Bob fun again. It's like, yeah, we're going to make something out of you. Kind of the visor kind of goes in and out. We also got the cool digital RoboCop vision, which is like, I don't know, just like kind of a different take on the Terminator vision, which was only created, according to James Cameron, as a asset to the human audience. It's like a computer would not be looking at this stuff, but it would make sense to deliver it this way to a human.
Yeah, because a computer wouldn't read off a list of possible
But here it makes sense because technically this machine is still human.
Well, RoboCop is going through what they call now augmented reality.
He's got the Apple
sees
visor.
The world in color, but he gets that cool targeting reticle.
Erectile reptiles. Then we come back in. We have the scientists are celebrating. The lady with the big glasses kisses Murphy's visor, and her makeup kind of smears on the camera. Then we cut to like a new like presentation where Bob is presenting RoboCop to a crowd. We kind of get a torso shot because it's still in first person. So we get a torso shot that's like revealed in the TV. So like this is a good like revealing RoboCop in pieces, which some of the people said was actually like one of the like effects guys' idea.
Oh, okay.
But that's one of those things. Yeah, that's another one of those things where you give directors too much credit. Where here it's like, it's Verhoeven's genius, but it could have been this effects guy's genius because he's got to. So that's filmmaking is ultimately a collaborative effort, and a lot of the credit goes. If it's good, a lot of the credit goes to the director, and if it's bad, nobody cares. Yeah. Everybody gets blamed.
Success has many fathers, but failure is an orphan.
Yep, yep, exactly. Then we cut to the precinct. OCP comes in with like all their scientists and stuff, and they're like taking over like the police department, which like this pisses off Reed, but they're like, "Hey, we're OCP, we own this place." But yeah, while he's yelling at OCP, like he gets silenced by like the thuds of RoboCop walking in, which these are great thuds. You get the robotic motion of the legs, and then they thump, thump, thump. Which makes a great cadence, I guess. Since you have to now, like Nathan was saying, because of the limitations of the suit, you now have to slow RoboCop down. Now RoboCop has his own cadence, which is probably interesting and unintentional, and another genius thing that just happened to happen. So, sound. Got to put up the sound design of this movie is impeccable.
Oh yeah.
If it didn't have all these good sounds, it would not be as effective. So, the cops in the precinct are gather around, and they're running up to see like RoboCop, and like the scientists are like building his rest station or whatever. They present that like RoboCop's organic systems are like kept alive by like a nutrient paste that basically is just baby food.
Right.
They put RoboCop through a diagnostic test by having him look at things. Bob asks RoboCop what his primary directives are, and here we get like the first person vision. We get first directive, serve the public trust. Second directive, protect the innocent. Third directive, uphold the law. And then a little bit later, fourth directive, classify. Yeah. Which is, I guess, good foreshadowing. It's like, what's that about?
That's one thing about this movie. It's a super tight script.
Yeah.
Nothing is wasted.
Yeah. Yeah, because we get character moments here. We get we're moving plot along, and visually we're setting things up for later on. And yeah, it's doing everything all at once. Then we cut to the police shooting range. Everyone's shooting basically at once. We got kind of focusing on Lewis as she's shooting. Well, here she's blinking her eyes a lot, but whatever. I guess everybody. I guess there's 20 people firing their guns off at once.
Yeah, that gets really. Did anyone have hearing protection on?
Except for Bob Morton, who's just plugging his ear.
Actually, doesn't work, but yeah.
No, I mean, it'll keep some gases out of here.
Yeah,
but it's not gonna be as effective. I mean, I think literally in the scene, everyone would be wearing earplugs unless everyone was incompetent. So I remember like that happened in Die Hard where they forgot to put like earplugs in Bruce Willis, and he like lost hearing when he's shooting the Beretta under the table because just basically all that blast just went into his head.
God, that'd be terrible.
Again, we like to reiterate on the show, every time a gun is fired, how cacovenously loud it would be and how terrifying it would be if you don't have hearing protection on.
Yeah. Guns are loud.
You cannot train. Oh, well, fuck, you can train to try to get over shooting a gun without hearing protection, and then you will have no hearing.
Yeah. You can do it. I'm shooting better than ever. Could you write that down for me? I can't read lips yet.
And in those types of, if you're in a real life-defying moment, like you're not going to care whether you have hearing protection or not. You're just trying to survive. So that's not the thing. But like, I like to reiterate, guns are loud. Yeah. They're dangerous in many ways other than just the bullet.
Yeah, it's a destructive device.
But eventually, like, even though everyone's shooting at once, we eventually start to hear a 3-round burst starts to like come clear, and then everyone kind of stops shooting and they gather around RoboCop. And here's where we get the RoboCop and his cool ass gun is revealed, which it's just a 3-round burst 9mm, but they make it look like make it look like and sound like a cannon. So it's just awesome. It's one of the best guns in movie history. So.
Yep.
And then like at the end, and he's basically just putting bullets in the head and the chest, and they just all go in the same place. So it's like he's a machine. He can just aim where he wants to. And so he gets done shooting, and he does the little flare twist, kind of like revealing here is like, oh, there's still something in there, still a human in there that needs to flourish and have like a sense of like art or whatever to it. And he puts the gun away, and his really cool ass gun, his leg opens up to put a gun in it, which is fucking awesome.
Everyone wants that.
Which I don't know if this is the first thing of it. I know this comes later. This is an anime called Paddlebore.
Okay.
Which, like, there's a little guy in there, so like they're piloting this big robot. But if you see, this comes open, and there's a gun in there.
Oh.
So this also has the RoboCop leg.
Everyone needs one of those.
We'll watch those. I think it's I always call it Paddlebore. I think it's called Pat Labor, but that always sounds weird to say. Paddlebore also makes no sense, but it flows smoother. Anyways, Pat Labor is a really interesting anime because they're like the movies are incredibly well done and animated, but they're very underfunded. So it's like 3 cool action scenes and basically a lot of still images and people talking about the plot.
Okay. We're going to get our 3 minutes in. Yeah.
And a lot of the design of the robots is really interesting because all they do is they just take, you got these giant robots that are like, I don't know, like 2 stories tall. Like you can see they're like, here's the size of the person. And here's the size of like the shotgun. And this shotgun is just a shotgun upscaled. There's nothing different about it.
It's just the size of a bus.
Yes. And so you have stuff where like the cops that are driving the robot, they can get out of it, and the robot can like can do AI stuff on its own. And you'll see like the cop running around like with his little pistol, and in the background the robot is shooting a shotgun, racking it, and the shotgun shell falls down. It's like the size of the guy, the cop. It's like, that's amazing.
That's a cool idea.
Because it's not like they didn't design a robot cannon gun. They just like, let's give a robot a shotgun the size of a bus. But also if you RoboCop is a heavy influence on anime. I doubt any anime influenced RoboCop. I can't be total 100% on it, but I'm not sure. So they go and get a car for RoboCop. It's pretty fun because like the Sergeant Reed like throws the keys in the air, and RoboCop just like snatches them, and, and it's like it seems like RoboCop is having fun, which is a very good choice because he's still delivering things like a robot. Like it's I don't know if this is full Verhoeven Effect and it's just me reading into it, but this is an amazing performance by Peter Weller to like put like character into a line that is delivered flat.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. I'm either imagining that or it's what's happening. I don't know. What would you say about the intentional flat and somehow character come through's performance of RoboCop?
I think that's why another reason they hired Peter Weller.
Yeah.
Because they wanted someone that could they wanted someone who could deliver a lot of dialogue and do a lot of acting without being able to see most of his face.
Yeah.
So, and it was going to be, kind of a Judge Dredd thing. It's like, but the helmet comes off eventually, but that's only because it was partially destroyed, so it had to. But yeah. But I do believe that was the part of the intention with him, and I mean he really got into this and did a lot of work. To make this happen.
Yeah, it has to be his biggest role, right? There's nothing bigger than this role for Peter Weller.
I would think so. Yeah, okay. Probably that most people would know. Yeah. I mean, for me, Screamers is up there too. But I really like Peter Weller in that
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. I really liked him. He was in an episode of Fringe that was really good.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
Like has some weird metallic thing going on with him, or like he has stuff sewed in him and stuff like that. And yeah, and of course he's in Into Darkness, where he's like maybe the best thing in that movie because that movie is very disappointing.
Yeah, I enjoyed his presence.
Yeah, we get RoboCop hits the town in his future Taurus. He scrapes the bottom as he goes out of the parking ramp. We get the RoboCop theme plays, the dun 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 dun, which is just awesome. And we get the I'd buy that for $1 guy who like this. He'll pop up throughout the entire movie, which this is just making fun of game shows and stuff like that, where it's just like, here's something that is completely valueless, but this guy says a catchphrase that people love, and then somehow it's redeemed in their eyes. It's like, he did the thing. This is the power of nostalgia.
Yeah.
Which I'm not sure if they're going for. It's a great phrase. So.
Yeah, I forget. I used to know what that was from, but I forget.
Oh, was that not created for this? Was that another thing?
I know it was created for this, but it was based on something, and
I
forget which one it was.
But then we get a reveal of a convenience store, and it's like getting robbed. The robber like counts them down to open the safe, which the safe is just hidden behind empty beer cans, which that doesn't seem. That seems untenable. We get RoboCop comes in, and the guy starts shooting RoboCop a bunch, where the bullets just bounce off of him. Which I like that they aim center mass, and and it does nothing. Nobody aims for the chin of RoboCop. So.
Yeah, everyone's doing. It's like the body is easier to hit than the head. They're using logic in their criminality.
And RoboCop comes up and he just bends the barrel of the rifle, and then he just clotheslines the guy, and he just like flies into like a refrigerated display case door, which I'm like, oh, that's got to cost a lot of money. But then he just walks out and he's like, thank you for your cooperation. Good night. Which is, again, it's just like it's a line delivered flatly, intentionally for comedy. It's great. Because, he did save people, but then there's like.
We did a tremendous amount of damage. Yeah. There was not that much money in the safe or the cash register versus the thousands of dollars of stuff that was just bullets bouncing all over the store, destroying everything.
But they are alive, and that's what's
they
important.
are alive.
And also, RoboCop just leaves. He doesn't take the guy with him, so somebody's got to pick that guy up, I guess.
Or he's dead. I'm not sure.
He could be dead. There's a lot of things where it's like, I'm not sure if that guy's alive or dead or not. Then we cut to two guys are chasing and harassing a woman. She drops her purse, and they say they don't want her money, so they start sexually assaulting her. But they're paused by RoboCop showing up. A guy grabs like the woman as like a human shield, and RoboCop shoots the guy in the dick like through her skirt. Which is, I guess, the test audiences has really kind of like proved RoboCop, and this was like a last minute thing that Verhoeven came up with.
Yeah.
Because I guess when people first watched this, they're like, did the robot just kill that lady and shoot her in the crotch? It's like, oh no, he shot the guy in the dick. Now it almost seems clever. Because I guess it was supposed to be like she was supposed to get a grazing shot across her cheek, and then it was supposed to blow the guy's head off. Like that was the original idea. But this is way more interesting. I guess.
Yeah, this made it better.
Yeah. It's almost like it's retribution. Like this guy was sexually assaulting her, and now he doesn't have a dick. So. Let's see. Then the lady like runs up and hugs RoboCop and says thank you, and she's like dumbfounded by like his robotic formula. So it's like, madam, you are hysterical. Like, I will call a rape crisis center for you or something like that. And she's like, what?
Yeah, he's not like oh shucks, ma'am.
No. Oh, he's the perfect autistic robot. He doesn't know how to respond to emotion. It's like then we cut to a former city council member is holding the council hostage, has already killed one of the council members. RoboCop rolls in. The cops are, what are they like waiting for a negotiator? But they already have a negotiator. There's something they're waiting for.
Yeah, they're basically just talking to the guy because he's already killed a hostage.
Yeah.
So someone's talking to him through a bullhorn, like a SWAT team guy.
Yeah. But yeah, the RoboCop just goes in. Like the cops are trying to tell him not to. The councilman apparently wants a recount and and demands his job back, no matter how it turns out.
Yeah, he seems rational.
Weirdly prophetic.
Yeah.
This guy's just Trump.
It didn't end this way.
No. Yeah. I was like this exchange because the guy's asking for, which like this just shows how crazy this guy is. He's like, I want a recount because I want it to be fair. Like I won the election. He's like, well, even if the recount says no, I still want my job back. And they're like, yeah, sure, we'll make that happen. Which he doesn't immediately read as bullshit by the cops, which is like, okay, this guy's crazy. They just need to feed his delusion. So then he's like, yeah, and I want a car too. And they're like, all right, what kind of car do you want? And he's like, something with leather, reclining seats. It goes really fast and gets really shitty gas mileage. And this is where he suggests, hey, how about the 6000 SUX? He's like, yeah. Which is because like the SUV wasn't a concept at this time, so it seems weird that this is like close enough to an SUV, and it just spells out sucks, and so it's these weirdly prophetic things that kind of work together for this movie.
I think that car is still around too. I think it's some backlot somewhere.
I mean, it almost looks like a Batmobile, like the 60s Batmobile. And we get RoboCop coming in. Here we get a thing of thermal vision, which this was like one of my favorite effects in a movie. Because we have either Predator already come out, and they had their wiles with thermal vision where they basically had to have like a semi truck to get thermal imaging, and it was still like terrible.
Yeah.
And what they did here, because they didn't have money to get a semi truck thermal imaging camera, is that they just put the actors in costumes and they painted them up to like what a thermal image looks like. And it's an amazing piece. It's an amazing effect. And it works just the same. This is where I've found out that when you get a thermal image, that like most of the heat is in your head and your crotch. Reason.
Yeah.
It's importance. Then we get the councilman kind of like the councilman gets pissed off as he realizes the negotiator is basically saying he's going to give him everything, and he's like, don't bullshit me. And then he grabs one of the other councilmen's and then like
he grabs the mayor.
Oh, the mayor, okay. And he puts a gun to their head, and this is where RoboCop busts through the wall and just grabs the councilman and throws him out of the window like in front of the news camera. Now here I'm debating, do you think this guy died when he hit the ground, or is he just injured?
No, I think he died because RoboCop punched him out the window.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't think he lived through that one.
I mean, I feel like you could survive that fall. You'd break a lot of things, but you could survive it. But I just don't know what's funnier, is that he died in front of the news camera, because it's clear they're clearly positioning it as that like the media watching someone die is a thing that's supposed to be horrendous but also funny at the same time.
Well, yeah, because the cameras, you notice that the guys are holding, they just track him down.
Yeah.
They don't, and no one seems like particularly like disturbed by the whole thing.
They're not editing it. They're like, I don't think people should see this. They're like, let's watch this happen.
If it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah. Then we cut to a news report, which these are used tremendously well in this movie, where you just like break up the movie with these news reports. You get a little flavor on what's going on with the rest of the world, and you also get a little bit like what do people think of RoboCop and what's going on with the rest of the world. Which
it's this kind of stuff that actually makes this movie work.
Yes.
It makes it not so bleak. Because otherwise we just watched a bunch of people get murdered.
Yeah.
In the worst way possible.
Because like you said, it's like these news reporters like reporting these horrible things with a smile, and it's like, this is stupid.
Over to you, Bob.
So yeah, there's a news report on RoboCop where it's like, hey, what do people think about him? We get like children here kind of touching RoboCop, and like, that's weird and interesting. It's cool. We also get news reports of America's fighting in Mexico. It's like, well, that doesn't seem good.
Well, yeah, it's like American army is helping the Mexican army fight rebels in Acapulco or something.
Yeah.
This is strange. It's also like kind of prophetic in a way.
Well, explain that one. Like, what are you referencing there?
Well, the war with the drug cartels
Oh,
that's
okay,
ongoing and constant. I mean, probably not as cool as seen in Sicario, but
yeah.
definitely something is going on down there that's bad. And I'm guessing, like in this universe, the rebels would be like communists
Yeah,
taking
that's what
over.
I'm thinking.
Yeah, but yeah, in our universe, it's just it's all just capitalists selling drugs to us, and
I mean, also
drugs.
not I guess not directly stated in this movie, but this is clearly like a treatise against the Reagan administration.
Oh yeah.
Which at the time was like wildly popular, and now is still wildly popular with a bunch of people. But like, no, RoboCop's correct. Reagan was terrible.
Yeah, no, he's only wildly popular with people that like don't understand his legacy. And actually, he was not popular at the time. His approval ratings were fairly low.
Yeah. Okay.
They had those weird spikes. It's like, because depending on when you look at George W. Bush, he was our most popular president or our least popular, depending on when you looked at the data. But Reagan was always, I think his average was above 50%.
Yeah.
But yeah, at this time when this movie came out, we would have been getting close to we did trade hostages for weapons, even though it wasn't specifically against the law. But I have no recollection of that conversation. And at that time, everyone's like, oh, he's lying. And then now we look back, it's like, no, he probably actually didn't, because he didn't know where he was or what was going on. So yeah. So yeah, it depends on how you look at it.
Then we cut to a commercial of a nuclear crisis game called Nukem.
Yep.
I think, unfortunately, I want to play Nukem. They ever make a game like this? I mean, it's basically just Battleship, but the idea is now you have nukes.
It's just a ridiculous, game. Like, you crossed my line of death. Like, no more military subsidies for you. And then somebody hits the button at Nukem. It's like, yeah, this is absurd.
Then we have Bob Morton's like being interviewed on the news, and he makes the bold claim that they're going to end crime in old Detroit in 40 days. So with just RoboCop.
And they're going to like destroy Detroit in 40 days. The level of damage he's causing.
I mean, compared to what Ed 209 would be doing, RoboCop is doing a way better job.
Oh yeah, no, Ed 209 is ridiculous.
Like, Ed 209 would have killed all the people in that convenience store and the robber.
Yeah, I mean, the scene where the woman's being assaulted, he would have just fired his gun through her.
Yeah.
He just up and they just raked it with gunfire. So. Hey, can we stop here?
Yeah.
Okay, I got a proposal for you. It's 9:00 already.
All right, hold on. I'm just put on things on standby for right now.
Yeah, we'll just go to standby.
So you want to just hard stop?